Hi, Ukulele Mike here. As we go on our journey of ukulele learning and finding new adventures in our ukuleles, it's important that we continue to increase and enlarge our chord vocabulary. Now, in the very beginning stages, the chords that we all learn will be what we call first position chords. For instance, the C chord, or the A minor, or the F, or perhaps the G7. These are all in the first position, meaning that the index finger is in the first fret for the most part, and the chords all fill up the first three frets. You don't go any further than that. But of course we have frets that go all the way up to the body of the ukulele, which means that we have more chords available to us. So what I'd like to talk about today is what we call the movable chord. A movable chord means that you get a chord shape, and then by moving it simply up the fingerboard, you create more chords. You have, instead of one chord, you can have 12 or 13 chords, new chords in your vocabulary. Now, today I'd like to talk about the movable 7th chord, the 7th chord. So, for instance, we all perhaps know the A7th chord. So that's index finger on the first fret of the third string. That's an A7th. Now, to make that a movable 7th, what I do is I bar the fret, I bar all across all four strings, and now I'm going to take my middle finger and put it on the, in this case, the second fret of the third string. So notice what I've done. I've just taken the A7th and I moved it up one fret, substituted the middle finger, and put the index finger down to bar the strings. Now the reason I bar those strings is so that the other three strings also move up proportionately one fret. Otherwise it won't sound right. So if you have an A7th, now I'm going to bar it and move it up one. That gives us an A sharp 7th. Now you probably won't come across that chord very often, but you might come across a B flat 7th. That's the same thing. An A sharp is the same thing as a B flat. Just trust me on that one. Now if I take that and I slide it up one, move it up one, it's a movable chord now. Now I have a B7th. You might already know this chord. You bar the second fret and the middle finger goes on the third fret of the third string. That's a B7th chord. But now that it's a movable 7th chord, I can slide it up again. Now it becomes a C7th. Now I move it up one more, it becomes a C sharp 7th, also known as a D flat 7th. Move it up one more, and I have a D7th, and so forth and so on. Now the strings get a little harder to push as you get up further, and this does require some exercise to develop the bar strength in your hand, but that is a movable 7th. Now I'm going to call this shape number 1. Okay, shape number 1. So take a look at it here on the screen, shape number 1. All right, so essentially we have 4 shapes in our movable 7th chords. So here is shape number 2. It's based on the C7th chord, which is the first fret of the first string. So to make that shape number 2, I'm going to bar the first fret, and I'm going to put my middle finger on the second fret of the first string, which makes it into a C sharp 7th chord. So we start with a C7th chord, and then we move it up one. Remember, we had to bar those strings to bring them up proportionately, and the middle finger now substitutes for the index finger on the second fret of the first string. There's your C sharp 7th. Now, it's movable, so let's move it up one more. Now it becomes a D7th. You may already know this form of D7th, where you bar the second fret and the middle finger goes on the third fret of the first string. That's a D7th. Being that it's movable, we'll slide it up again. Now we have a D sharp 7th, also known as E flat 7th. Move it up again. Now we have an E7th. Now you already know this E7th down here, but this is a higher, what we call higher inversion of the E7th. A little brighter, isn't it? Move it up one more. Now we have an F7th. Move it up again. Now we have an F sharp 7th. Move it up again. Now we have a G7th. So you see, by knowing just that one shape, shape number 2, you not only learn one chord, which is a C sharp 7th, but you could potentially learn 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, 11 chords all the way up the fingerboard. So let's take a look again on the screen at shape number 2. Okay, so now we're enlarging our chord vocabulary in a big way by knowing these movable chords. In this case, movable 7ths. In future lessons, I'll talk about other movable chords, but the movable 7ths are very important. Shape number 3 is based on the G7th chord, where you put the ring finger on the 2nd fret of the 1st string, the index finger is on the 1st fret of the 2nd string, and the middle finger is on the 2nd fret of the 3rd. That's a G7th chord. Now to make this a movable 7th chord, and this is what I'm calling shape number 3, is that once again I bar the 1st fret. Now I take these 3 fingers and I substitute them for these 3. So this is a little trickier than the other 2 shapes that I gave you, because you have to have 3 fingers to substitute there. So what I'm doing is I'm putting the little pinky on the 3rd fret of the 1st string. I'm putting the middle finger on the 2nd fret of the 2nd string. I'm putting the ring finger on the 3rd fret of the 3rd string, then barring it, like so. Now we've taken the G7th now and we've moved it up 1 fret. So now it's no longer G7th, but G sharp 7th. Now I'm going to move it up again. Now we have an A7th. This is another way of playing an A7th, but at what we call a higher inversion. If you're looking for a brighter sound in your chords, this is how you do it. You raise it up into a higher inversion. And this is also kind of cool if you're playing with other people, that you can actually plan ahead to play inversions of the chords so that your partner could be playing the lower inversion, you could be playing the higher inversion. And when you put the 2 together, you get a really full, bright sound. It's really cool. I'll tell you what, Peter, Paul, and Mary did this way back in the day. Peter would play one inversion of a chord, Paul would play a different inversion. And they often do that by capoing, putting a capo on the neck to bring it up. But by doing that, the 2 guitars didn't play the same inversions of the chord. They played 2 inversions that made the sound of the guitar sound fuller. Same thing with ukulele. If you got 2 or 3 ukuleles, you could be playing 1, 2, or 3 inversions of the chords simultaneously, and it will increase your sound as an ensemble. This is something you might want to try with your ukulele playing friends. So so we started off once again with the G7th. We move it up to a G sharp 7th. Move it up to an A7th. Move it up again. There's an A sharp or a B flat 7th, and so forth and so on. Now this one does take a little bit more energy to play it, because you got to move all 3 fingers up the fingerboard as well as the bar finger. So and these are also good bar technique exercises, these movable chords. So this is the shape number 3 of the movable 7ths, and take a look at the screen right now. All right, so last but not least, here's shape number 4. This is based on the F7th chord. Now, the F is played like so. Index fingers on the 1st fret of the 2nd string. Middle fingers on the 2nd fret of the 4th string. All right, so we know that's an F. Now, to make that into an F7th, all we need to do is put our little ring finger here down on the 3rd fret of the 3rd string. Now that's an F7th chord. Now, to make this a movable F7th chord, I need to have you do one more thing. Put your pinky down on the 3rd fret of the 1st string. Now, that's also an F7th. So when you're playing F7th, normally you could either play it this way, without the little finger, or by putting the little finger down on the 3rd fret of the 1st string. That's also an F7th. It just has a higher note added to it at the top. Now the reason I put, of course, my little finger on the 1st string is so now that all 4 strings are covered, which allows it to be movable. So let's take that and move it up 1 fret. Now you got to slide all 4 fingers proportionately up, like so. Now it becomes an F sharp 7th, also known as a G flat 7th. Trust me on that again. Okay, now move it up again, and now we have a G 7th. Now we know G 7th is this, but once again, a higher inversion. You can do the Peter, Paul, and Mary technique here. When your partner's playing G 7th down here, plan to play it up here, so that one of you plays down low, one plays high. Once again, your two or combined ukuleles, 3 or 4, sound bigger than just one, because you're playing higher inversions. So there's G 7th, and there's G 7th, higher inversion. Now, as you go up, I should caution you, the strings, I should say the frets get closer together as you go up. So that means your fingers will have to squeeze together a little bit to fit in there. Now we're up to a G sharp 7th, also known as A flat 7th. Okay? So there's your 4 shapes for your movable 7th chords. Take these and practice them, move them up and down the fingerboards, say the names as you go up. Remember, everything goes up a half step, down a half step as you go up each fret. And practice and practice and practice until, first of all, you get comfortable with moving up and down the fingerboard. And then secondly, you get your bar technique down too, because it does require a fair amount of bar technique. That means energy. Do your barring exercises every day. You know, take about 5 minutes to do these little movable 7th chords, and you're going to find out that your bar chording is going to improve exponentially. Okay, so there you have it, the movable 7th chords, and we're moving right along. Many more tutorials to come, and let's be happy strummers always. Take care.